Hey friends, we are back at Nikki T Live. I'm your host, Nick Taylor, and today I'm hanging out with not one, but two people. I'm hanging out with Brian Douglas and John McBride from OpenSauced. Yeah, before we get started, for folks who might not know who either of you are, if you just kind of mind giving a who you are, maybe what you're up to, we could start with Brian if you want, and then John, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Brian Douglas is my name. B Dougie is my game. Um, yeah, starting out pretty hot with the dad jokes, but yeah. So founder, chief sauce officer at OpenSauce, where we provide insights into open source projects, doing some pretty cool stuff that we'll show later. And yeah, I've been working on this. I don't know. I've been working on this full time for about a year, but I've had the URL since 2017. So like I've been
Okay.
working on it for a long time, but as you do with URLs, you kind of sit on them for a while.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Awesome, thanks. And John, if you just want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Name's John McBride. I'm a senior software engineer at OpenSauced, and in my past, I've worked on a bunch of cloud stuff. At AWS, I was working on the Bottle Rocket operating system. Before that, VMware and Pivotal, working on Kubernetes things and some
Okay.
observability stuff. But yeah, super excited to be chatting about some of the pizza things we're doing, and yeah, really excited to share this technology, Nick.
Yeah, no, cool, cool. Yeah, no, thanks again, both of you for coming on. I know you got a lot on the go, but yeah, that's cool. I'm excited to dive into the project, but I was thinking kind of before we get into what the pizza project is, maybe I think maybe Brian, you could go ahead and kind of like for people who have never heard of open source, like I knew it initially as like a great, and I still refer to people for a great place if you want to just get into open source. It's definitely that, but I know it's more than that. And if you kind of want to touch on maybe what kind of open source as a whole is.
Yeah, and I think like we kind of covered this last time I showed up on stream as well, which I'm happy to catch folks up. Like the original vision for open source was I am a career switcher, did a boot camp years ago after doing like a sales career, learned how to code, worked at startups. And what I found was like open source was like a really cool way to level up quicker. Just
Yeah,
as if you wanted to play in the NBA, like if you want to be a great basketball star, you're probably going to go play basketball. But as
yeah,
engineers, for whatever reason, like, and it's like no downplay against like folks who just want to like have a 9 to 5 job. That's totally fine. But like if you want to level up, the best thing to do is go write some code with other folks. And open source
yeah,
becomes that place where there's like established projects, teams, stuff that's leveraged by tons of people. Like there's no better way to get a different level experience. So like Nick, I know your background being .NET. Now you do a bunch of JavaScript, TypeScript stuff. Like even just learning another language, open source becomes that
yeah.
platform. So I built it. I started live streaming in 2020 on the OpenSauce.pizza brand, and was just building this as like a CRM for my open source contributions. Find your next contribution was the tagline I used,
Yeah.
and built that during 2020. That product got to the point where we actually the sunsetted a couple months ago.
Okay.
But it got to the point where we built a community in a Discord around the idea of like, let's talk about open source and share repos and make contributions. But a year ago, last summer, I found there was like a huge gaping hole of like Hacktoberfest happens in a couple months. Everyone knows
Yeah.
Hacktoberfest. Can you find good first issues? But I think the one
Yeah.
misnomer is like if you don't have any context on the project, like doing a good first issue doesn't matter. Like finding those don't matter if you've never used a
Yeah.
project or you don't have any sort of context. And then there's a whole disconnect of like there's companies that are involved in open source, there's maintainers, there's individual contributors, there's foundations, but there's always a disconnect
Mhm.
between like the contributor and the maintainer. And I think we're trying to bridge the gap is like how do we build interactions to the maintainers and the companies that maintain open source in a way that's sustainable and not
Yeah.
annoying. So that's where we're at today with open source. And we go like
Okay.
deep into like the product itself or show some CLI stuff.
Yeah. No, that's cool. It's cool. And it's like, uh, I think it's important. Like, I mean, like my past two jobs I've been working in, well, currently I'm working in open source still. I used to work at Dev2 that's open source. And like, like to me, I was contributing to open source before that. And when I got the opportunity to go work at Dev2, it was like really appealing to me because one, I had been a contributor because I really like the project and I still use it. But then being hired to work and get paid in open source is a like a a pretty nice privilege, and it's, you know, it just melds so many things that I like together, like hanging out with the developer community, you know, putting it, you know, I know not everybody's always comfortable putting their kind of air quotes dirty laundry out there, but like I think if you can get past that, you know, like it's not like people are literally going through every single line of code you've ever put on GitHub anyways, but it's, I don't know, it's just opened a lot of doors for me. I found open source in general. So
Yeah, and I know John, coming from AWS, did some open source stuff. What I
Mhm.
learned in open source is like most people don't really care to like dig in every single line of
yeah,
code or go to like the historical record, but there are some people who do like doing that, and those are like the folks who are like they kind of shine as they sort of walk through a code base and ask questions and start helping ship code alongside of you, and like having that opportunity to get like QA from your community members to then open up issues to then see the process of stuff get fixed. You're
yeah.
building like a whole nother relationship with your end user than you would normally
Hmm.
get if it's like closed source and something you just download and interact with through like customer
Yeah.
support forums.
Yeah. That was a lot of the power of doing some of the stuff with Bottle Rocket at AWS was I think AWS is kind of new to the game of building in public some of these things, but it was an
Yeah.
incredible avenue to being able to like get direct customer user feedback right in our GitHub repos, instead of having to go through some of the like, you know, maybe longer paths like through customer support or through maybe some like the PM org or something, which, you know,
Yeah.
that's incredible feedback as well. But just being able to say, you know, have somebody drop in and say like, hey, this thing is broken. Can you fix it? And there's the issue for it. And then being able to do that in code, referencing the issue, you know, classic open source stuff is great. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'll also drop in and say that one of the things that really has resonated with me about open source is kind of like Brian was saying, like just being able to build a lot of that tooling around the communities and the maintainers. Because man,
Yeah.
so many different times at AWS, I was, you know, working in the open source and working in, you know, these bottle rocket things. Somebody would show up, drop an
Yeah.
issue, like I was saying, and I would just ask myself like, who the heck are you? Like, are you an AWS employee? Are you a customer? Are you somebody
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
we partnered with? Like, I cannot tell. And there's no good way to do that today
Okay.
in the GitHub space. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's been exciting building some of that stuff for enabling maintainers for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I like what you touched on too about like who is this person, you know, like kind of there is community around it as well, and it like you were kind of alluding to, Brian, you know, not only are you a user of this particular product, but you know, if you're contributing to it, you know, you clearly want it to succeed, and there's also like, you know, there's a bit of dopamine hit too whenever your code gets merged. I think I don't know anybody that doesn't like that, you know, so there's that as well. But yeah, cool. And I guess like the other part, like you're saying, there's some parts that you can't really surface in GitHub right now, but I know like in open source, like the insights and stuff, like these are newer. I don't know how relatively new they are, but like, you know, like I can have highlights for my own like PRs or issues that I thought were, you know, pretty good, and you know, and it's like, you know, your GitHub README still gives you like, here's stuff I'm working on, but it's kind of nice to have this feed of like, hey, here's a cool PR I did, here's a little write up about it, and it kind of ties into like, I don't want to see you're guaranteed to get a job if you're working in open source, but it definitely doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to. There's no guarantees in anything. So like
Yeah,
I think, and that's the other one thing that I noticed a couple years ago when I was working at GitHub. Um, like folks have like this step-by-step guide of like, oh, this is how you do open source. Go find a project, go find this issue, look at the package.json, then
yeah,
change white space in the README, and like you're an open source contributor. And I tongue in cheek, and I'm joking about that. I think white space changes are probably not needed, but typos are needed. But then when
yeah,
you're just a typo hunter, like then your entire resume of open source is just contributions to typos. And like there
yeah,
needs to be like some sort of evolution of like people moving to the next stage. So like what we wanted to do is like the highlight feature you alerted to, like there's a trend now. There's a overemployed is the Reddit that I follow, which is like a
okay,
bunch of people who show their LinkedIn, um, all like you know like those LinkedIn stories of like I was walking down the street, saw a paper bag, looked inside of it, and then there was like a dollar bill, and that dollar bill turned out to be this old lady's dollar bill that then was the CEO of like this Fortune 500, and that's how I got my job. Like those type of
Yeah.
stories on LinkedIn. So it's like I don't want to share those type of stories in open source, but highlights is basically just the opportunity to have just focused. I want to talk about my open source contributions. I want to recommend other people take a look at this place that I'm being successful in as far as contributing. But also like the one thing I learned in 2020 when I started OpenSauce, live streaming it, is like storytelling is really powerful. Where if I hear somebody made a contribution to dev or made a contribution to whatever project, like that story makes it believable that I can do this. And I think that's what's always missing for a lot of this open source contribution, where a lot of folks will preach on how to get involved in open source and provide you steps, but like with no story at all and like no representation of people actually doing it. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with the highlights feature and having dev profiles on OpenSauce.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, I know Becca, one of your coworkers and a friend of mine, she's all about storytelling, and it makes sense, it just, everybody likes a good story, so cool. I don't know if you want to talk a bit more about OpenSauce right now, or we could jump right into this new project that's called Pizza. I don't know if you I know, John, you've been working on this. Maybe you want to speak to what the project is exactly?
Yeah. Before John speaks, I want to just share how I pitched John to work on this.
Okay.
So back in 2017, I interviewed at GitHub. Actually, my interviewer is Mike McQuaid. So Mike McQuaid's actually working on a cool thing that hopefully will be public soon. But what I'm getting at is that my interview question, technical screen to get my DevRel job at GitHub that I had for 5 years, was a clone a repo, use bash to identify frequency of contributors. And I think a ton of GitHub employees had that same interview question. And I technically did not get the first interview I did. So I interviewed a month before for an engineer role. Didn't get the job, but I did it in Ruby. And then I did it again in bash with Mike. And then I did it in JavaScript again. And I guess what I'm getting at is like, the idea is like you can clone a repo, look at the commits, and then identify insights from it pretty quickly, just from the commits.
Yeah.
And I reached out to John, or maybe John, you reached out to me first.
I reached out to you.
we did a Twitter space together.
Yeah.
Talking about AI ruining open source or something like that was the subject. And then you follow up like, hey, would love what you're working on. So I pitched you this idea of like, could you build this thing but scale it? And knowing your background with Bottle Rocket, I was like, hey, what a perfect little sandbox idea. And that's what we have today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll
nice.
So the first kind of iteration of it was, some of the best advice I've ever gotten is, do what you know. So I know Go very well, so I wrote it in Go initially. And the initial idea from, I guess, the interview question was that, it would be a small Go program which you could containerize and microservice up. That would just, you give it on the command line some URL to a GitHub repo, or really it could just be any Git repo out on the web. It could be the Linux kernel. It could be GitLab or something, because thankfully we have this Git standard that is rather agnostic to the platform that it's being hosted on. So the initial kind of iteration was give it just a Git repo. It's going to clone it down. It's going to like parse all the commits, and it's going to like drop those into a Postgres database. And then from there, you can start doing some really interesting stuff with what exists inside of the database and kind of pulling commits out of it or pulling insights out of it and stuff. That kind of evolved into what is now a microservice that we're running that exists as sort of a server that you can then send those requests to do that sort of same thing, with some fancy like optimizations in there and stuff. So that's sort of the short and sweet of it. But there's tons of different things we can kind of go deep on, like how it's architected or how it's, there's a lot of interesting things that are still maybe to be solved about like deployments and scaling and all that. Always scaling is always fun. So maybe I can. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we can dig in. No, I was gonna say, we can definitely dig into it. I was gonna say before you shared your screen, like I did a very small amount of Go a long time ago, but I do know it's good for networking use cases. Is that like one? I mean, aside from it being a language you're very familiar with, is that another reason why you decided to go with that, or was it just really like, yeah, no go?
Yeah, I've also done a bunch of Rust. Bottle
Okay.
Rocket is all written in Rust, so my whole time at AWS was basically only Rust based. But
Oh,
uh,
cool.
I I sort of take a I like Rust a lot, but you end up sacrificing a ton of developer productivity in maybe sacrifice to a highly uh, productive app in itself, right? So you're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
do a bunch of stuff with um, dependency management and like memory borrowing and all this stuff, and that ends up being like a huge time sink in the end with Rust. So that's maybe my hot take on Rust.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and hence why it was easy to pick Go because yeah, know that well, and you can move really fast with Go because
Yeah.
it does it. I guess that's maybe one of the benefits of having a garbage collector. This is very technical on the deep side, is that you don't have to manage a lot of that yourself. Which,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no, it makes sense. It's kind of funny. I was when I spoke to one of the creators of the Fresh framework for Dino, because Dino was originally written in Go when they first
mm,
started it, and then
mhm.
they realized because they're using V8 as well, like it was garbage collecting as well, and there was these competing garbage collections happening, so
Ah,
they decided to move to Rust. So, and it's just a little side note, but it's I, I think a lot of because like even when I was in university, like I started off in C++, and then they literally the next year they moved to Java. They just went to just garbage collection. I don't know why, because I feel like at the university point it kind of makes sense to understand pointers and memory allocation, but who knows?
yeah,
Hey, what's up, Brandon?
it wouldn't surprise me if one day it did need to be rewritten in Rust just to get that next little ounce of optimization and stuff. But I think it sort of ends up being a calculation of like, well, we could spend 6 weeks writing this thing in Rust and getting it right so that it's not going to like
Yeah,
be bested, or just write it quick and go.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that,
yeah, for sure.
but and I think a lot of the and don't let me rant too much about Rust, but a lot of the optimizations you get, I think, have very niche use cases. Like, sure, if you're writing some firmware, or
Yeah,
if you're writing an operating system, like, yeah, please do not use C. If your other option is C or C++, you should probably be using Rust. Is really the optimization there. So,
yeah,
for
yeah.
like a cloud microservice, Go is a great choice.
Okay, cool, cool. Awesome. Yeah, you were gonna say. Feel free to go ahead and share your screen. I'm not sure if you're
Yeah.
sharing it yet.
Let me select. Where is it? This is a
Let's
great
see here.
drop
Let
down
me move
menu.
us to here.
Okay.
Oh, and I don't have us all in there. That's kind of
Uh-oh.
funny. No, it's okay. I will edit the scene live. Why did that not have that? But that's cool.
There we
Don't
go.
worry. Hold on one sec.
Oh, you gotta love the scuffed stream. It wouldn't be a good stream if it wasn't a little scuffed.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's like I was saying before. I have a set stream set up, but I configured it for 3 people today, so
Mm.
that's why it's a little different. But give me one sec here. Let's go to pairing mode, and yes, we've got the infinity going on here. Let me move that. Cool. All right. I'm just gonna copy some stuff from here real quick, and then we should be good to go.
We're doing it live.
Yeah, exactly. It's this I'm not so stressed out about. It was more like audio and video not working like I was saying before the stream. So, all right, let me just go
Yeah, it's
paste
amazing
this
how
in.
many of like all these developer live streams, like we've all become experts in this
Yeah.
this audio visual situation.
Oh my goodness!
All
For a
right.
while, I was trying to stream using my Linux desktop, and that was an absolute nightmare. Like trying to get
Let's
any audio interfaces to work nicely with Linux was a mess.
okay.
Yeah, probably mostly an
Uh,
afterthought in the audio visual
okay.
space.
Yeah. You know what I'm gonna do?
Just
I'm just gonna modify the pairing to add the browser source instead, just so I don't waste too much time here. Just give me a sec here. Da, da, da.
We can fix it in post.
Yeah,
Does
exactly.
OBS
Yeah,
work in Linux?
It does. It works pretty
yeah.
well in Linux. Yeah.
All right, let's just do this. Cool. I'm gonna have some funky stuff in the background. I'll just move my screen from the back, but all right, let me just go get your screen share. The good thing is the next time I do this, I won't need to redo it. But
Nice.
nothing like fixing prod live. All right, cool. All right, let's do that. Browser. All right, that should be your screen. All right, cool.
Cool. Look at that. I also have the chat open on my phone, so people out in the interwebs, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them. I should see them. But okay, cool. So yeah, where to start? Let's go into my workspace, go into OpenSauced, go into Pizza.
Quick question. I don't know if you can zoom in a bit more. I don't know if it's a terminal and maybe not, eh?
I can. It might kind of blow up your. Let's see. I'll zoom in a bunch and let me know what this does for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the font's actually moving. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, this might be a little.
That's adjusting.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Awesome.
How's that?
Yeah,
this is iTerm.
This is iTerm. Yeah.
Okay.
But I have it like 15 tmux sessions or something. So.
Yeah. Okay. You're one of those.
To get lost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the repo, I guess, here, and we can see like what the remote is at. So yeah, that's just under OpenSauced Pizza on GitHub. If y'all are curious, as well, and like look at all this stuff. But maybe we'll do just like a real short kind of code walkthrough, and feel free to interrupt if I'm just like going off the rails here. But long story short is, this thing essentially, I guess with like most programming languages or these kind of lower level things, you have a main.go with a main function, much like you would in C or something, or even Rust, and it slurps up a bunch of stuff from the environment to know about the database that you're going to hit and like what server it should run on. This Git provider is a little nuanced, and maybe we'll touch on that a little bit later, but it can know about different ways to pull down Git commits and use kind of an abstraction on the system. There's an in-memory provider. There's also a cache provider that we wrote. A bunch of interesting stuff there. But we initialized the database in here, which, that's not super interesting. Long story short, it's just using Go's SQL abstractions to grab it using a connection string, and it knows about Postgres. And this maybe in the future would be an interesting thing to abstract if there was some desire for us to be like, oh, well, maybe we want to not just use Postgres, but maybe there's other databases it can connect to and know about. Right now it's just only Postgres here. So going back up the stack here, we're back in main.go, and then we have a server configuration to essentially just slurp up some additional configurations. A lot of the config stuff just ends up kind of being like, configs. Configs for a server, not super interesting, right? But then we get down here and we actually get ourselves a new server, which knows about a couple things. It knows about a logger, and that's using Uber's Zap logger, which is a really nice leveled logger in Go. Highly recommend Zap logger. It's awesome if you're doing stuff in Go. Then it knows about this pizza oven, which handles all the database stuff, which is all the Postgres things. And then it has a Git provider as well, which knows about pulling down Git repositories. Then it goes into run here, which has a few different endpoints. There's the bake and the ping. But the big one is bake. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, for folks who haven't done Go, I imagine like http.handle func is kind of like just like if you were using something like Express, you just have your route and your handler there pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of the lowest level thing in Go actually. So if
Oh, okay.
if we go up to HTTP, it's actually just defined here in our import as like the default library for net HTTP. There are higher
Okay.
level abstractions of that. Like a really popular one was Gorilla Mux, which
Okay.
was going to be deprecated, or the maintainers decided to stop maintaining it, but now Red Hat stepped in is going to help maintain it.
Yeah, I think they have a new group who's now steering the ship there.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
which is
But
really
yeah,
nice
but
because that would.
your
Oh god.
Express thing, like Express is like the framework on building servers in JavaScript, like that you have out the box.
Yeah.
Like the way this is like the lower level, closer to the network, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Got you. No need for an express or a framework, basically. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like for like my context, I learned Go back in like ironically 2016, 2017, and I interviewed at Netlify in Go, and then built like a whole server, learned all this stuff for the interview, and then when I got there, I
Okay.
only wrote JavaScript, and then became a front end developer at Netlify, which really bait and switch for me. But it's just funny because like Matt, the CEO, I laugh about that every time because it completely changed my career going into React. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, this whole mental model of Go, it's like if you think of like the utility belt, it's like the pieces of the belt, but it's like your fork does the one thing. You can make the fork
Hmm.
do a bunch of other things. Uh, but sorry, I'm like not explaining Go very well. I recommend everyone who writes JavaScript to try out Go because going down to the lower level, like it removes the need to even do C or anything like that. You can
Yeah.
learn how things work and concurrency works, and like even garbage
mhm.
collection to a certain point works, where that's all abstracted for JavaScript folks.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things too is Go seems to have a pretty good, big, solid standard library.
Yeah, it's rather robust.
Yeah.
There are libraries that have like been rewritten. Um, to like a good example here is, I chose to use the Zap logger from Uber
Hmm.
instead of like the standard library logger, which is fine. The standard library logger, you can get a lot of this done, but a lot of really what ends up happening in some of these other libraries under the hood is they're just kind of wrapping things that are
Okay.
already available to you under the in the standard library of things. So yeah, it's a great language to I think it has the like developer efficiency, but also it's like so uncomplicated, like
Okay.
really uncomplicated in a lot of ways. You can get into some nitty gritty stuff, but doing simple things you can get going really quick with Go.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think too, like if anybody's done TypeScript, obviously it's not the same thing. There's structs here, but like similar patterns,
yeah,
and and I guess also the other thing to kind of pick up is just getting familiar with pointers and references to pointers, like changing
yeah,
values and stuff, but which is kind of like C like or C plus plus like, but I don't think it's that big a lift. It's just, it looks super scary, I think, initially, but
right.
it's not as scary as it's supposed to be, so as it
Yeah.
is.
A lot of people struggle with like not being able to it's more you can't really do like an object oriented programming. You sort of can with Go, but like in the sense that you would maybe with like a Java or a C++ or something, like there's not really the notion of doing that at all. You do get these like structures that you can instantiate, and you can have
Yeah.
methods on top of those structures, but you're not really like abstracting away like creating objects or doing polymorphism and all that stuff like that. That's not
Okay.
going to happen in Go at all. Really, the most you get is like this function where it's like, okay, like this function is saying that on the pizza oven server there is this method handle request.
Okay.
Uh, but that's about as much as you get into any kind of object oriented stuff.
Okay. And I did have a quick question before we kind of dig more into the actual service.
Mhm.
Like for the types in Go, is it like TypeScript where it's duck typing? If it has these properties, it is just that, or is it more like when I was working in .NET, like if you had two interfaces in different namespaces, they weren't considered the same thing. Even if you literally had all the same properties, the types wouldn't match up. Is that how it is in Go, or is it more like TypeScript like in that sense,
It,
or?
it's a little more like TypeScript, where you can have and that, what Go calls these is interfaces. So you can have multiple interfaces that implement the same thing essentially.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a good way to like give an example of that, but wait, do you want an example of that, or is that too much?
Yeah, we could do it. I mean, yeah, no pressure at all. It's just
Okay,
more me. I'm just picking your brain about Go. That's all.
sure. Let me find, where is it? Do I not have it over here? Let me grab a quick side project of mine that
Okay.
is ironically another is another logging library that there's probably too many of these out in the wild, but I'm surprised I don't have this already here. So I'm gonna git clone, go for logs, which SSH key yes. So go for logs is just a kind of a simple logging library that's more intended to be used with command line interfaces and provide some interesting kind of
Okay.
animations and niceties and stuff. But
Okay.
there's one thing in here that is what I would consider pretty high level Go, where there's an animator type, and these options also has an interface, and
Okay.
you can have many different. Basically, the only requirement to implement this interface is an apply function, and that's what this
Okay.
is
Yeah.
saying
Gotcha.
here. So
Yeah.
you can have any different kinds of implementations that happen to implement apply, and then it satisfies that interface. And that could
Okay.
be
Cool.
across packages, that could be across even packages you import and stuff. So that can be part of the power here is, I could
Okay.
actually I if another package that I was using wanted a command logger type struct. I think I have the not command logger, excuse me, the logger interface. I get these mixed
Yeah.
up sometimes because they sometimes end up being sort of the same. But if I was importing something that needed a logger interface, I could implement
Yeah.
it in my package and then actually
Yeah.
inject that into that. It'd say that it took like new logger instantiator, and I just drop that in as an interface. I could do that
Okay.
across
Cool.
packages, which can be really powerful. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Gotcha.
it gets pretty abstract pretty quick, where you can actually kind of foot gun yourself with like having sort of this like dependency poisoning across packages
Okay.
too, where I have this logger interface, and for some reason I'm implementing it, but it's ejecting maybe something that you wouldn't want to or something inside of there. So it can
Okay.
get pretty gnarly pretty quickly. So yeah, that was a big tangent.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's all good. No, it's I like that they kind of treat it more like TypeScript because I always used I mean, it's something I was aware of in .NET, like in C Sharp, but it was just like annoying sometimes, like but it also comes down to how the project's broken up, and also C Sharp is object oriented predominantly, so like
Right.
it's there's different paradigms as well, but no, that's cool to know. So because I imagine even too like if you were testing stuff, if you had to have like a mock of something, you could just kind of inject it as long as it satisfies that. So no, that's cool.
Right. Right.
All right, that was a good tangent.
Uh, Good tangent. Yeah, gotta love it. Always fun to chat a little bit about programming languages, but okay. So yeah, this thing, and maybe it's not super interesting to go super deep into like, a lot of this sort of ends up being boilerplate in Go to like
Yeah.
instantiate the actual server to actually, start accepting requests at our endpoints, and to actually start doing stuff. So if we kind of go down. Let's see. So down here we have a handler for the ping endpoint, which just responds with Pong. That's just kind of like we're healthy, like
Uh,
200, we're good.
okay,
And that's
like Redis.
yeah, exactly, actually.
Yeah.
And that's pretty nice for cloud services that want to see a healthy endpoint that is like as little code path as possible, so you're not like
Yeah.
drowning the service. And then we get into this actual process repository, which gets called into when you hit the bake endpoint. So kind of the fun idea is
Okay.
that you're gonna like pizza bake a repository. Maybe we can see it run. Maybe would be kind of fun, and that I should have prepared a bit of this ahead of time, but what we'll want
Oh, no worries.
is
I was live editing my OBS, so no worries if you're not
yeah.
completely prepared.
Let's what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna head over to our API, and I think I was editing something in here. Okay. We're gonna I think this is fine actually. I'm just gonna Docker run something that, yeah, this one exactly. That is just
Okay.
gonna like stand up, a local Postgres database that we sort of expect for the OpenSauced API.
Okay.
And yeah, since the kind of nitty gritty of this is the OpenSauced API actually integrates with this microservice, so it kind of has
Okay.
this like flat control plane of things that it can know about, including this pizza microservice. So I'm just gonna start this up. I'm going to open another little thing, and I think I have, this is just a silly little script that I have that actually just applies all of our migrations.
Okay.
But I actually need pg admin, export pg admin. Yeah. That just happens to be the name of the database. You can tell I've done
The
this like
secret
1,000.
password.
I know,
Yeah,
super
yeah,
secret
yeah,
password. I've done this like 1,000 times, so it's all like in my history.
That's all
and
good.
then
It's all good.
and then we can apply our migration. So this just does like all of the migrations in the API repository, which is going to do PSQL on top of that and actually apply that file. So this is sort of
Okay.
like the lazy like stand up all these tables, like make it super easy. Like here's a pizza table, here's like a repos table, all that stuff. And so we're going to see all that stuff fly through there.
Okay. And does it seed it with data after, or you just you start crawling repos to start really getting data in there?
For our use cases, yeah, we'll use the pizza service, I guess,
Okay.
up here to start kind of crawling all that stuff. Yeah, okay, so this is stood up. It has all the tables. We should be able to go into the .env, and I did clear this out a little bit ahead of time. Let's see, I think I put this on port 25060. This is going to be localhost. This is going to be, what is this going to be? I'm not actually sure.
Woof woof. I don't know.
Postgres.
The password is going to be woof woof. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Postgres. That sounds about right. And this is going to be. I have this. I'm gonna stop screen sharing just so I can look at my other secrets file.
Yeah, no, no worries, no worries.
Real quick, it's gonna be.
It'll pop back on once you reshare it. So.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Because I have this. I definitely have this somewhere else, but I don't want to.
Yeah, but for context for folks who are following along at home, like we do have a public API to OpenSauce.pizza. John's running a local one to kind of do the demo. Yeah. But yeah, for anybody who wants to leverage OpenSauce today, you don't necessarily need to do any of the stuff. Like we've already got it all set up for you.
Yeah, and while
but
John's
if you want to
setting that
contribute,
up,
you'd probably do this.
Okay. While John's just getting his keys set up there, so this is a long running server. It's not serverless. It's actually server full, I guess, because it's running in Kubernetes. Is that right, John? Or
it's sort of something in between. It
Okay.
could be run as a serverless, little thing that quick spins up, accepts a route, and then does the thing, spins down.
Yeah.
There's a few optimizations we've made, primarily around caching Git repositories to disk, so that we
Okay.
don't have to constantly be calling git clone over and over and over again, which
Okay.
is a very quick way to get throttled by GitHub or some Git service provider or something, right?
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because I did read a little bit in the repo. So you're using a LRU cache, like a least recently used cache. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can have this LRU cache that essentially fills up, and then there's kind of a giant like on the disk essentially, which you can do in different cloud providers with file system. Like what's the AWS one? I think it's called Elastic File System or something, where your serverless components could attach to that Elastic File System as they spin up and down, to then acquire the cache. We just kind of went with I think it's Elastic Compute, or not the Elastic Compute Service. It's Elastic Container Service, ECS, which is sort of like
Okay.
containers easy mode. It's a lot like, DigitalOcean's apps or Microsoft Azure's easy mode container stuff. Again, just to
Okay.
move quickly and get stuff instantiated fast. Yeah, serverless also ends up being a good option if you're trying to move fast on some stuff.
Okay.
Okay, let me look back at this real quick. Sorry, I got distracted just there.
No worries. I'll put us back to the other view for a minute so we have a little less white space.
Oh, sure.
Cool. So okay, so this is up and running, and like maybe you can speak to this, Brian, while he's just checking that out. So it crawls the repos, but do I have to explicitly say I want my repo crawled, or is this something that like you have like a list of repos that you just start crawling, or what's, I guess, like what's the flow with this service?
Yeah, so for this service, you do have to explicitly ask. I don't think we actually have a cron in the background sourcing stuff to bake just
Okay.
yet. The original, so we did have other services that we're using to also crawl data from, in particular, GitHub. And like
Okay.
the bare minimum metric was 100 stars. 100 stars is the number that we look for because that's only 225,000 repos that have reached that 100-star
Okay.
mark. So like we do have that data already in our platform, just not as deep as Git commits. So I
Okay.
imagine
Gotcha.
in the future we'll have a cron or actually I've been meaning to open up an issue for our team about ingesting or baking repos that we already have insight pages for. I don't think we started
Okay.
that as well. And that should be like one of many signals that we know to like, this is a repo that people want to get insights on. And then we'll
Okay.
have a
Yeah.
whole private sort of like a private instance for folks to do this eventually in the future.
Okay. Cool. And the stuff that you're trying to surface is like insights is like a very general term,
Yeah.
but like, so you're ingesting all the commits. So like I guess there's like, I'm thinking of, for example, like conventional commits, chore or something, fix that. Like you could probably definitely already, if you see that in there, you can just kind of say like, I'm pretty much going to ignore chores, probably just go grab features or bug fixes. Like I'm sure there's other things you crawl, but like in there, but
Yeah. I mean, that's a bit more granular than we're currently getting insights from. So
okay.
there's some truths that you kind of have in majority of projects. So projects that are successful have contributions, have leverage like downloads and stuff like that,
Yeah.
or releases rather. Most people have a default branch, and in your default branch, you try to keep your history as clean and pristine as possible. And
Yeah.
like when you start having best practices where sometimes your chore commits end up getting squashed instead,
Yeah.
then we can start looking at usually a squash commits or merge commits that show up could be your PR or your pull request.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that we have so far on our UI is we're just showing you pull request because like PRs are like a good sort of like stake in the ground that I did a thing. Like
Yeah.
commits are more of like I'm doing a bunch of stuff. Who knows if this will ever land on the default branch? So the truth that we
Okay.
have is like
Yeah.
just check the default and then figure out the pattern of like what is the pull request in there. So like we are
Yeah.
using GitHub's API to identify pull request data.
Oh, okay. Cool. Gotcha. Awesome.
All right, I think I got it.
All right, I'll
up.
bring us back here. Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay. We're back.
Okay, so yeah, so kind of where we were about to like instantiate this, and we now have a local Postgres running in Docker that just so happens to look like the database that would be behind the OpenSauced API. Primarily, this microservice is concerned with just like one or two tables, so not a lot of heavy lifting happening.
Yeah.
But we can actually run this pretty simply with just like go run main.go, and then I'm also going to give it the debug flag, which we've built into it to let Zap logger have some like more human readable logs. We're going to spin that up, and then it starts, and that's really it. So we could see that it instantiated a logger with -1, which is the debug state, and then it's using the Git cache provider. And I did, let's see, what did I configure for the cache provider? So we can go back into the env. That's just the local database with the password woof. And then this setting here sets it to use that LRU cache. So
Okay, gotcha.
on the disk, and disk just being like my MacBook's hard drive,
Yeah.
it will actually drop those into on here, which we can see. So it's going to use just the temp directory, which is very nice in Linux because that will actually just get blown away each time you reboot. So you don't have to worry about stuff in there ever sticking around.
Okay.
And then we do provide also this option, which is a minimum free disk in gigabytes to essentially say,
Okay.
like, because we could run into a huge problem where the LRU cache fills up and then the disk is just full and
Yeah.
you've basically like iced your machine and you can't continue to do operations. So this is the eviction criteria where if
Okay.
for some reason the LRU cache has equaled or surpassed the amount of minimum free disk, say that it downloaded a bunch of stuff and now it's the only amount of free
Yeah.
disk left is 24 gigabytes, it'll start evicting stuff to reach that 25 gigabyte minimum.
Okay.
So
Gotcha. Yeah.
yeah, so that ends up being kind of the the behind the scenes what's happening with the eviction criteria for the amount of disk that you want to keep around.
Okay. Cool.
Cool. So I'm actually gonna go over to the pizza CLI, and this is a command line interface that we have started getting a lot of steam on to really kind of make it so that
No pun
you're not.
intended.
Yeah, I know, right? Steaming pizzas, it's great. That'd be so gross, but but bad puns, I know. But this is a nice way to interact with all things open source, primarily right now with this pizza microservice without having to like use curl or send like a raw request or something to this microservice. Because right now I
Okay.
could
Yeah.
do just curl localhost 8080 ping, and that should
Yeah.
whoops, not 808 8080 ping, and there's pong.
Okay.
And to
So we're
actually
up.
do, so we're up, it's up, yeah. But to actually do like a bake request, it would have to have like the headers and like an actual JSON body and blah 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 blah, and that's just gross to have to interact with directly. So the pizza CLI gives you a really nice, simple, composable way to do this without with being human, right? The
Yeah.
humans,
Yeah.
like the rest of us, want to use nice CLIs. Okay, so in here, I'm just going to run a quick make command. I'm just going to run make build, which should just build the most recent thing. And now that executable is inside of the build directory in this repository.
Okay.
So I can run stuff like build, pizza, bake. Let's just run the help command real quick to see what we got inside of here. So primarily what it wants is pizza bake URL, and that URL
Okay.
being the actual GitHub URL for the repository.
Gotcha.
And then there's a few extra things where you could provide it like a YAML file to like batch a bunch of stuff to the bake service. So you're not just doing one after another. You can wait for requests to finish. But yeah, let's. And then this one is going to be very important, where we actually provide an endpoint string to not hit the real service, but we can hit the one locally. So
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
yeah, so this will just be local host, or I think it actually needs HTTP local host.
And like you said, it'll default to whatever the actual endpoint is if you don't specify it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
We also have there's a shorthand here to use the beta API as well, which really the shorthand ends up just being endpoint beta.api blah 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 blah. So this is kind of the quality of life flag to hit the beta endpoint instead of the production
Okay.
one.
Gotcha.
So let's just put in github.com/ we can do that. Go for logs, one that we just did. And finish processing. So what it just did a huge dump there of a bunch of stuff. And this looks a little gross with it doing that wrapping, but we can go up and kind of see like what it's trying to do. So it's going to first check if the repository is in the database. Whoops, I should not highlight because it's going to move. It's going to check if the repository is in the database. It's not.
Okay.
So it's going to actually insert go for logs. And then it's checking the configuration for the provider. And it's going to start doing like kind of the cache hits on all that. So we can see it saying like, okay, I'm getting it for the LRU cache. And then we see it say, okay, cache miss. I'm going to put this into the cache, which will clone it into the local disk. And then
Okay.
then long story. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say when you git clone, I'm guessing you just git clone the main branch. You don't like pull in all the
Exactly.
branches. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, there kind of ends up, and this was an interesting issue Brian opened on the repository about looking at tags as well, where
Okay.
there is the possibility to. So right now, it's only looking at the main branch. It's ignoring all tags, which basically it's just like the default trunk of the Git tree that it's looking at. It's not looking at any of the
Okay.
branches or anything. Tags can be really interesting because they do signify really important points in history on within the Git tree. But those points in history could be on like different disparate branches. Like
Yeah, that's true.
one pattern you'll see all the time in Amazon repositories is they'll have the main trunk, which will sort of be like the like most newest recent things. But then as they
Okay.
cut releases, they'll actually cut off branches that will track those, and they'll have separate tags for separate point releases on those major release branches.
Okay.
And so you'll see tags that end up sort of being headless tags if you don't have the entire Git history.
Okay.
I don't know. It ends up being really gross. So, long story short, just the main branch, no tags right now. But yeah,
Okay.
there could be interesting data to pull off some of that in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did have another question. So like obviously if it's not in the cache, it's gonna insert it. But let's say I don't know, say I do it like right now, I pull in the Gopher logs, and then tomorrow, like between now and tomorrow, two PRs were merged, and then I go run the insights again. It may still be in the cache. So how do you do a diff, or like what happens there when you say like I want to kind of pull it in again but update it?
That's a good question. So the sort of state of this thing right now, and we can actually go look at it in the cache, which might be useful.
Okay.
So let's open another little thing. My terminal windows end up being like browser
It's
tabs.
like Tmux Inception. We're gonna have like 20 little
It
squares
does.
at the
It
end.
does. Yeah. Funny
Made a
enough,
totem.
yeah. If you try to tmux inside of tmux, it's like, hey, you should not do that. That's bad. Don't do that, please. But you can if you really want.
Yeah.
All
Hashtag
right.
YOLO.
Anyways, so yeah, we're inside of the temp directory, and the way it ends up doing this is a little funky, but sort of makes sense if you start to kind of decompose it. Is it'll actually break up inside of the cache the get cloned repository as part of the actual path to the clone URL. So it's
Okay.
going to live at https github.com github my username gopher logs, so we can print working directory. You can see that's essentially the cache. And
Oh,
then
okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
cloning it to disk now, we can git log, all these things. We can see, it has, I think there's only like 10 commits inside of here, so it's not a lot. But if we did get another commit on top of this, where, say right now I went and pushed some new commit on here, if I come back
Yeah.
over here and rerun that, we're gonna see it that went super fast. And what it found is that, there was a commit that it already found at the tip of the head that it pulled down.
Okay.
So it doesn't need to actually insert anything anymore. So it
Oh,
tries
okay.
to
Okay.
be
Gotcha.
intelligent about what it already knows about in the database and what, that diff ends up being when it does a pull. So essentially what it's doing inside of here is it's just going like
Okay.
get pull. It's got a pull. It's like already up to date. I don't have to do anything. Which
Okay. Okay.
it would be a similar operation you would do, in your own like dev workflow or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's just kind of nice that you're leveraging existing, tech
Right.
to simplify things. That's nice.
We can actually let's see. Let's use PSQL to get on there, and we can look at what some of those tables and stuff look like. Let's see, PG. Oh goodness, now I gotta do this into here. PG password.
Bring back the woof woof.
Yep, bring back the woof woof. It's okay. It's not a real password, folks. It's fine. Okay, so yeah,
Everybody's going to try it in prod right now.
oh, it's gonna be marvelous, I'm sure. Okay, so this is just not my usual preferred way of getting onto a cluster, but here we are. we could select cluster being a Postgres cluster. We could select star from baked repos, execute that. And this
Okay.
table is pretty simple. Like you can go look at the API migration file inside of the OpenSauced API repository, but essentially it has an ID, it has a URL it knows about, and then it does have a reference repo ID that, in the future will actually backfill if this was like in a real production system with the
Okay.
real GitHub repo that we know about inside of our kind of grander system. But
Yeah.
it knows about that. It knows about, let's see, let's select star from commits. Commits, I forget what this is actually. It might be, let's look at the code.
Yeah. While you're doing that, I have a question which might be kind of getting in the weeds, but because it doesn't happen super often, but when people change the name of a repo, um, like I feel like maybe this is just a use case where you're like maybe not worrying about it, or is there some? Because I think internally GitHub or I don't know if it's Git or GitHub, but they know when you change it, they know how to point. Because like I've had
Yeah.
my remote be my, like I remember when dev 2 switched to forum, like my remotes on my local still said the practical dev, but it was actually forum now, and so that's a GitHub thing, I think, not Git, or is it Git that does that? I'm not sure.
So GitHub handles the 301s. So
Okay.
it's a GitHub thing. I think it's all on the Git provider if they provide redirects based on renaming. So we just renamed the Insights repo yesterday to app.
Okay.
And that was actually an issue I opened up yesterday. I was like, hey, we should probably change the name for people, because that's what GitHub does. They change the name for you, but every service that uses GitHub through the API has to handle that themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think there's like 1,000 different like weird Git workflow things that people might adopt. That another one
Yeah.
that we don't handle is force pushes, which basically rebases commits on top of whatever you're forcing into the repo, and
Yeah.
really breaks anybody who is tracking that branch. So heaven
Yeah.
forbid people, I would hope people aren't force pushing to main branches frequently for like real production projects or stuff. But if for some
Yeah.
reason, yeah, we just wouldn't really be able to handle that, and we'd have to like kind of rebuild the stuff, rebuild all those commits and things.
Yeah. Side note: protect your main branch, people.
Yeah.
Yes, protect the history at all cost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So here we could see, I was just missing a from.
Oh,
I
okay.
love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to select star from that thing, but we could see here that uh, it knows about which repo, which was referencing that other table. It knows about the
Yeah.
commit authors, which I won't dox myself since I'm the only one who committed to that. But we do know
Yeah.
about who the kind of person that was committing into that. We know about the hash, and then we know about like the actual date that was committed to.
Okay.
So that then from there you can kind of start building some interesting, you know, insights on top of like, okay, like what's like maybe a velocity of commits or
Yeah.
something instead of like the dates. The commit hashes may be useful in the future to reference like real
Hmm.
points in history on those repos. The IDs of the actual authors. You could even build
Yeah.
like a bus factor or a lottery factor sort of thing on top of that. So yeah,
Okay.
this sort of unlocks like a whole world of like knowing about the real nitty gritty of individual projects that use Git as version control, right?
Yeah, I'm even thinking like with the commit author ID, I feel like you've probably already thought about this for the project, but I feel like you could highlight like this is a top contributor to this particular repository, just kind of like badges and recognition, or like you know like, we do. GitHub has badges now. Dev 2's been doing this for a long time, and it's like it's on the surface it seems like a silly thing, but whenever I get one, I like that I got a badge. It's a weird lizard brain thing, so it's like I think surfacing like, hey, you've been contributing quite a bit to this repo, like hat tip to you or something.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't know if Brian, you have any thoughts on that. There seems to be some interesting work we've been doing around like dev cards and all that
Yeah,
highlights.
100%. So like we're working with the university. There's some research that's been done around reputation and recognition and like how that kind of fuels like the next wave of open source
Yeah.
contributors, but also career advancement as well. So like that stuff's still pending. Like we don't have the quite story yet to share that, but subscribe to our newsletter and blog, and we'll share that soon. But there's a lot that we're working on. So like you're on the right path. Like I could tell you the top 10 contributors of all of GitHub today based on the 225,000, now 260,000 repos that we have
Okay.
indexed. Like it's interesting to show that, but like we're not just gonna put that into like the UI without a bit of a story. Because
Yeah, for
the
sure.
story there is like we don't want to encourage a bunch of people who run cron jobs in the background to merge GitHub actions and attach your name things, because a lot of the
Yeah.
top 10 folks are doing that stuff. But there are some legitimate folks who just like love contributing to every repo they touch. So like
Yeah.
trying to figure out what that storytelling looks like. But yeah, there's some nuance and some sort of clever things that you can discover out of open source and what's happening and see some trends.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You did mention, you asked something interesting earlier about like, oh, like, is this like a server full, serverless? What is interesting here is that you'll notice that I did, bail out of that instance running. I went over here to look at the migration file. So there's no, I could, run that same ping command again. And it's like, there's nothing there because we pulled down the server. If we come back over here and do the go run again with the debug, we'll see it come up in the same way. If I exit out of here and then do the build pizza bake thing with gopher logs, because that cache is still on the disk here, like I didn't go into the temp directory to delete it, and because the database keeps a lot of that state, it just picks that right back up, and it doesn't have to re-index all those commits. So that'll be something really important when considering a microservice like this, because it would just be so expensive to have to not only reclone stuff constantly, like we'd get throttled pretty quickly. Go and try to clone the Kubernetes repo from GitHub 2 or 3 times in a day, and you'll see it just crawls eventually. But also we don't have to reindex all those commits just because they exist statefully inside of the database.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, and it's so you're pulling in like you're pulling in the data, you're pulling in like the commit hashes, like the committer IDs and stuff. Are you pulling in I might have missed this when you were talking about it, but are you pulling in the actual commit logs in the cache, or are you just keeping all these pointers and then you're just hitting up GitHub later to, to kind of not overload things, or what's the flow there?
That's a good question. I mean, right now, from the actual code perspective, let me see, I got to remind myself where this exists. Let me open up some room for myself. Right now, what we actually look at is, let's see, we handle request, we process repository. Yeah, let's go into the process repository. There's essentially only the there's the stuff that we pull in from this library here. So and I don't know if Insight is a very good name for this, but essentially what we're calling internally inside of this little project in Insight. Essentially what we're rebuilding right here is we're just grabbing the author email, the hash, the date, and the repo URL itself. But we could grab additional information off of that stuff. So let me find, and maybe it'd be useful to actually I'm not sharing this window, but the project is called GoGet, I believe.
Okay.
And it's a really interesting project because it kind of rebuilds a lot of the APIs within Git the like
Okay.
actual binary, not necessarily like GitHub or GitLab or anything, directly in
Okay.
Go so that they're available as part of, the calls into it with Go. So long story short is like if it's provided by Git and if it's part of this API inside of the Go Get project, we could use it in theory. So yeah, I'd
Okay.
imagine like files changed, like the actual commit message. There's so much stuff inside of there. Like you've kind of nerd sniped me now because I'm actually very curious where I sort of
Yeah.
forget where we do that.
Well, I was just curious because like obviously having the commit hashes, commit the committer IDs and stuff, that's already like enough information. That's why I was wondering, you know, what I mean, like, because then you're kind of not denormalizing the data, but like it's already in Git. That's why I was kind of wondering.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, here we go. So here, which this is an individual commit, this C, we're doing basically a for each on each of the commits. And
Okay.
if we go into the actual, this is like the actual libraries like definition here. We have
Okay.
hash, the committer signature that has PP, all this stuff, like a bunch of this
Okay,
stuff that you
that's
could
nice.
sort of start to like decompose from, additional things like
Yeah.
I think message is going to have like the arbitrary text of stuff. Yeah, the root tree of the hash would be really interesting because you actually could start to crawl that backwards and see if there was anything inside of there that, we needed additionally. But yeah, a bunch of interesting stuff in here that we could pull off of additionally.
It,
Yeah.
the what's interesting about this is like these commits or Git itself is so the open source protocol built by Linus Torvalds who created Linux. It's like it is literally like a blockchain. If you like,
Yeah.
everyone knows the Web3 thing since that got pushed down our throats the last couple of years. But like where blockchain is kind of rudimentary and like it kind of solves some problems, but doesn't really solve enough problems to stay funded.
Yeah.
Like each one of these fingerprints or each one of these pushes hold enough data to like really build a sort of an oracle, I guess, as you wish, of like what's happening within open source, which gets really interesting. And like our first pass on this is like let's just see commits and let's associate commits to a human being and let's associate to a repo that associates to PRs and then take a step
Yeah.
back and look at the whole globe to see how round the world is or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's like really there's so much we can do with this, and like this approach that we
Yeah.
have today with the pizza oven that John got kickstarted is like only the beginning. And yeah, if this is at all
Oh, yeah.
interesting, folks, let us know. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, no, like because my brain's just kind of spinning now, thinking of things like even the because like I have a PGP signature for my own because like at one point I was like it makes sense that I've never seen it happen, but like but people can say commit under your email, which I don't
Yeah.
know anybody that's ever happened to. But I was just like, hey, it's pretty trivial to set up. GitHub docs show you how to do it. Um, but the neat thing about that is because you're talking just getting back to insights again, like imagine like an enterprise company because like when I worked at Autodesk, you know, if they're like, hey, well, Nick in cubicle 22, he's not verified in Git, you know, like you could surface that and say like, hey buddy, you gotta get, you know, get your PGP signature in there and stuff. So like I could see not just surfacing insights but like even like potential security insights as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, there's a world that we so like with open source, not to be like that meme with the guy with Charlie Day in front of the all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
strings or whatever. But
yeah.
like the beauty of this is like, yeah, we definitely have a footprint understanding that we could build into like a security play of like, oh, we can find out who are the folks who are contributing, who are not signed off commits. But I think what
Yeah,
I'd rather look at the lens of like if we can encourage people to do open source better. So like talking
yeah,
about keeping your history clean, and like using the default branch and like making sure you have best practices on history, but also the
yeah,
fact that almost nobody does the PGB thing or no one signs off their commits. It's just not as common
yeah,
outside of like the large projects. Like we have a pathway of like why you would want to sign commits from the
yeah.
get go, or the go get rather, pun intended.
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's cool. Yeah, no, I mean, like, there's obviously, like I said, there's just a bunch of things I'm thinking of, like you could do with these insights, obviously, but no, that's pretty neat. And I guess another question I had is like you said this is spinning up in Kubernetes right now. Is this the only mic? I I've never really had to build anything in Kubernetes, but like I was front end at this AI startup back in like 2017,
Hmm.
and they're like, can you help us deploy Kubernetes? So like I was deploying to Kubernetes, but I wasn't like building out this stuff. But like, is there a reason like just because I know Kubernetes is for orchestration and stuff, but like with the one service right now, or is there other things in there, or like I guess my question is very long-winded, but what I mean is like, is it too early to be using Kubernetes, or do you need to use it just because of the way this is implemented, or
Yeah, that's a good question. I may have misspoke earlier, but it's actually deployed right now on Amazon's ECS, which is
okay?
it stands for Elastic Container Service, which is different than EKS, their Elastic Kubernetes Service. You gotta love all the
Oh, okay,
Elastic
okay,
services they have. But
okay.
ECS is essentially their like apps container deployment, and I just call it container easy mode
Oh,
because
okay, okay.
it's sort of the like, here's my container, please run it for me. I don't care how, like I don't want to care about the infrastructure. I don't want to care about how you
Yeah,
orchestrate all
yeah.
that stuff. It I've been doing Kubernetes for years and years now, so
Okay.
I had considered that, and actually initially, and maybe part of the confusion is inside of this hacks directory, there's a setup.sh, which is essentially like a local end-to-end sort of bootstrapping of like all this stuff. And it
Okay.
does actually bootstrap it onto a Kubernetes cluster. So we could actually see that go through.
Is that
And what it
local, you
does,
mean like using like kube control or something?
it uses this utility called kind, which is
Okay.
Kubernetes and Docker. So it kind is kind of gnarly because it doesn't give you like a full true Kubernetes experience because it just has one node in Docker running the stuff on top of that node in Docker on Docker. So it ends up being like container inception, which gets really, really gross. But
Yeah.
it's really nice for like small sort of and its original intent, how it came out of Google, was like the devs there just needed like easy ways to test stuff locally, and that's exactly what this does.
Okay.
So really, let's hack setup.sh,
But
and we'll
the
see a bunch of this go through.
yeah, to interject real quick, the question about the Kubernetes, whether this is too early. There was a thread about startups failing because they chose Kubernetes really early.
Okay.
Um, I think Kelsey Hightower jumped in and like had a rebuttal to that. But at the end of the day, it's like I think we have actually I know we have a very broader vision of what open source can be and how we
Yeah.
support. So like we glazed over the Git provider thing, and the reason why like everything's not GitHub and it's Git provider is because there's GitLab, there's
Yeah.
Bitbucket, there's Garrett, there's like all these other tools. There's also self-hosted Linux things in Gittree. So like the hope is that open source can be a provider for all the Git providers.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, like not everybody is open source. So like the next step is to support same insights that we're working with and same baking of the repos for enterprises
Yeah.
and for private repos. So like
Yeah.
we're sort of like being a little more agnostic around these design choices for that reason
Yeah.
that we can grow and be a sustainable company that sells in enterprise.
Mhm.
Okay. The nice thing about that is because it's Git, like it's already, you've got a good abstraction for all the platforms.
Yeah.
It's like not everybody is so lucky when they're trying to say like I'm gonna hit all these different platforms. So it's that's just like a side effect of it happening to be Git. But yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. Gotcha.
I, Another thing I'll interject is that like and what kind of where I was going with my thought, like I totally agree with Brian. Like even being a Kubernetes dude for so long, like I know a lot of the pain that comes with like managing those kind of deployments and stuff. And there's some really great services out there that there's a few that come to mind, like EKS and
Mhm.
VMware, where I was at, had like the whole Tanzu suite of things that make managing Kubernetes really easy. But
Yeah.
what was important to me, like spinning this up and like trying to add value to open source really fast, was just that velocity and being able to like just have like, here's my container, please run it. And the nice thing about this is that really with a like well kind of architected microservice inside of a container is really that can just live on many any different kinds of platforms. Like
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
even
for sure.
yeah, I've even heard of people like just spinning up EC2 instances on AWS, putting a load balancer behind it, and then SSHing on there and doing like Docker run this thing, and just exposing the ports on the EC2 instance. And that's like the most serverful thing you could possibly do, but it's still running a container. So
Okay.
putting it in container gives you kind of a ton of that flexibility in the end.
Yeah, yeah.
So what, speaking of like what this is doing right now is it's doing a lot of what I was kind of doing manually before, actually just within the script on top of
Okay.
Kubernetes because, again, do what you know. And local kind development is actually pretty simple when you kind of get through the nitty gritty of setting a lot of this stuff up. So
Okay.
here it is like actually building the container. It's going to then load that into the kind context, which it can then load that onto the kind cluster. And if I come, let's do another window. I'm gonna use this utility called K9s, which I love a lot. And it basically gives you kind of a terminal user interface for interfacing with your Kubernetes clusters.
Okay.
But here we can see the Postgres cluster is up. Then we have the actual pizza oven deployment. It is erroring for some reason. I'm not sure why. We can go in there, actually look at the logs. I didn't give it enough disk probably, so I couldn't create a cache inside of there. But yeah, this essentially gives you kind of that whole like deployment inside of a local kind cluster if people wanted to. So
Okay. So it's kind
yeah,
of giving you like a Docker PS kind of look here.
yeah, essentially. And this has got so much stuff running on top of it because it's Kubernetes. But I think the important thing to highlight here is that because it's a container, as long as you kind of surround it by the right things, it just works on many different platforms.
Yeah.
And really, it needs if you're using the cache provider, it needs the disk, and then it just needs the ingress to be able to serve those endpoints, which are
Cool,
usually
cool.
pretty easy on most platforms.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this is super cool. So, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like quick time check. I've got a hard stop in like 12 minutes.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't. We've kind of like seen how the pizza's made and how the oven's built. It might be worth like going through like the CLI and showing off some of the stuff that's like in progress and the thoughts and ideas we have. So we've got
Okay.
we've got a draft PR or two draft PRs on like two ideas from the community of folks leveraging the CLI that's built on top of this sort of production pizza oven. Uh,
Yeah.
would it be worth showing those off in the time we have left?
Yeah,
I'm down for it. Cool.
yeah. Probably let me switch to my browser. Maybe that'll be like an easier.
Okay.
Yeah, I
All
mean,
right.
I think there's some demos in the actual
Yeah,
PR itself.
exactly.
Okay.
I just have to select the right browser.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
windows are like mine. I've got so many Chrome tabs and Firefox windows.
Yeah.
All
Do you
right.
mind just zooming in like 2 or 3 times
Sure.
since we're in the browser?
Oh, for
I
sure.
can read it. It's just more for people checking out the recording.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this was that go get
Okay.
repo I was talking about, which provides all of the Git APIs and stuff in pure Go. I love when people say pure about things. It cracks me up every time.
It's
Uh,
organic, no
it's
GMOs.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, exactly.
so the pizza CLI exists here, also written in Go, mostly to leverage a lot of the really nice existing and kind of efficient stuff in Cobra, which is a Go command line bootstrapping library.
Hmm.
And yeah, if we look at the two draft pull requests we have going on, we'll start with this pizza show, which is a really cool one from Kin Ho, who has been making a lot of awesome contributions recently. So shout out. And essentially, what this will, and maybe I can like just blow this up. Oh wow, that really. Maybe I don't want to do that. Okay. Essentially, what this gives you, can I zoom in more? There we go. Is sort of this like terminal, this like whole terminal
No, I think the
user.
window froze.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah, when he went to zooming out.
Let's try again.
Oh,
And here we go. Allow. Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, so let's rewind this. Um, Essentially, what this gives you is this like sort of much like K9s, like I was showing before, this terminal user interface that you can actually see on your terminal and interact with. It's
Okay.
sort of something between like a real application that you might click around on and like a more declarative CLI. But
Okay.
having
Yeah.
this command on here, you know, imagine, and we did this at VMware and Pivotal back in the days. We would just have these big monitors of our they were really just TVs, but we plugged them in and then set up like our CI/CDs with like the big green boxes and stuff on there, so we could all see what was going on. So like you could kind of imagine this same experience, refreshing constantly to see new insights and new things coming on. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is an awesome contribution, and really really excited to see this happening. Yeah, tons and tons of possibilities around different things we could do
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, it's nice to see. I've seen a lot of love go into CLIs over the last few years. Just it's there's as UI like, but also just like just better prompts and everything. And a side note, but there's this really cool project called the React Inc. where you can actually write CLIs in React, which is kind of like fun.
Oh,
But
wow,
anyways, side tangent.
that's awesome. Yeah, I like CLIs quite a bit because I think not only can you move really quickly on them, you can execute like just really fast. You can get whole features done, in a fraction of the time it would take to design and build like a whole UI and website and front end and all that stuff.
Hmm.
You could really package all that really efficiently inside of here. But also like the composability is just insane. Say that instead of this terminal user interface, we wanted to dump that out as JSON or YAML or something. Somebody then
Okay.
could pipe that into the next thing, slurp that up with, awk or sed or something, or JQ if
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
JSON, compose that into scripts or compose that into like the next sort of thing. Like it sort of like opens you to this whole ecosystem of developers using your stuff to build on
Hmm.
top of it and build and build and build. And it's really cool how ecosystems evolve around CLIs.
I know for sure.
But let's
No,
look
that's
at
cool.
this one is similar, but kind of gives you that maybe that more fine grain sort of look. And this doesn't have a recording since it essentially just runs pizza insights, and then you can give it some additional subcommands to get data about it from essentially from our API. So that's
Okay.
that's a really important thing to us about developing the CLI is we don't want to be doing anything too really anything nuanced in the CLI itself. We want to be sourcing all that data from the OpenSauced API directly, much like you
Yeah.
would with like kubectl is just getting all that stuff from the Kube API in the end, right?
Okay. Cool. Cool.
Yeah, so this grabbed the contributors, and we can see for like the GitHub CLI, there's 25 new contributors, recent contributors. Same thing over here with like Kubernetes itself. Um, Looks like also yeah some kind of like nice quality of life stuff around like the flags and
Mhm.
how you can like kind of pump that in with like a file, a YAML file or something. But yeah, this is also
Okay.
like a really stellar contribution, and I'm really excited about getting this in it as well.
A quick question about it. I'm curious that the churn contributors, how do you decide that? Is it just because they just haven't contributed in like X amount of months or something? Is
That's a good question, Brian. I
Yeah,
don't quite
so
remember.
yeah, this is what we so me, Brandon, and John were in Denver a month ago. Churn
Yeah.
okay.
contributors work in the last 90 days. And then month over month, if folks disappear after 90 days, then they turn into a churn contributor. In the UI,
Okay.
we're actually going to call these alumni. So churn, it seems awkward, but
Yeah,
folks
yeah.
can return back from alumni or go into alumni, and it just becomes more of like like putting your jersey up on the rafters
Yeah, yeah,
after
yeah.
running a really good quarter. But yeah, it's a nuanced thing that we have publicly in our API. Yeah, it's how we're getting the game started, and hopefully, I'm sorry about all these like dad puns, but we're just
It's
getting
all good.
started.
It's all
We're
good.
to shoot the hoop in the field goal.
Hey,
Yeah,
there it is.
yeah, yeah. Put it through the posts. Yeah, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll also
No, this is
say
super cool.
for those who are interested, the API is out there if you're curious about it. So at api.opensauce.pizza, you can get the Swagger doc, which is really just the way to like look at the entire thing. And this is probably not the right way to look at this, but sort of how I've, in my mind, liked looking at this is sort of as this like control plane of data that, we surface to not only the OpenSauced Insights app, but also, to the CLI, and it interfaces with the pizza service and kind of ends up being like the one-stop shop to get a bunch of this stuff, right?
Yeah, the interesting thing about using Swagger, sorry, Brian, but using Swagger, I did a stream with somebody from Postman last year, and they can pull in the Swagger, and it gives you the documentation, which is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that ends up being similar in this kind of user interface where it's
cool.
It retrieves this, and then you can see like an example. You can even do this like try it, where I don't know what. Let's try it. So if I did like ID of number 1, this will in theory grab the very first highlight ever. Maybe
I think I actually deleted it.
Is it gone?
It might 404. Yeah, I think you had to go with 2. When we were testing the feature, I knew I would regret that later.
Well, there it is. There's the first one. It looks like it was whoever this is.
It was me. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
You see login BDougie. Yeah, so for whatever reason, I had like a dummy highlight as our sets of feature that I deleted it in the database. So rule of thumb, don't let your CEO touch the database. That's
that's why we have backups, right? Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're pretty much at time here. We got a few minutes. I know you got a hard stop, Brian, so I'm just going to drop links for you, Brian, and for John, and also if folks want to check out OpenSauced as well as the pizza project. It's been a lot of fun, lots of cool stuff, bacon or getting, I don't know, I'm trying to use all the pizza puns here, but it's exciting to see all this. And like I mentioned at the start of the stream, like one of the things that got me interested in was just the community around it. And like, obviously it's open source. So like, I don't have a link to the Discord at the moment, but if somebody wants to drop that, definitely check it out. It's 100% the place I always recommend to people when they're trying to get into open source. There's lots of great places to go, like Eddie Hub is great too, but I just, because I know people in OpenSauced, it's usually what I drop for people. No, that's awesome. Aside from that, anything else before we wrap it up there?
Stay saucy.
I was waiting for it. Okay, cool. Awesome. Cool. I'm going to drop the schedule for next week. It's got interesting stream next week. Going to be hanging with Aiden Bai, who created the Million.js project. So for any of the React folks out there, if you want to kind of ramp up a bit on the virtual DOM, Million.js is meant to speed up React applications. So I'm really curious about it. So going to be talking with them next week, and lots of other great folks coming on in the next month. I think we'll leave it there. Thanks again, everybody. Great chatter in the chat today. And Brian and John, if you don't mind staying on a sec, if you got to jump, don't worry, Brian. And I'll see you all next week.
All right. Thanks, everyone.